Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Vantage Live Analysis session. So I'll wait for about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to stream in, and we will get the session started. So for today, we will be covering mainly on dollar index, gold, as well as euro dollar. And at the same time, if you guys have any questions, right, do put them under the questions chat. Okay, so let's get the session started, right? So for those of you guys who are here with us, a very warm welcome and very nice to see all of you again. So for today, we will be covering the live analysis session. So for this, we will be going through mainly the trade setups. And if you guys have any questions as well, do put them under the questions chat. So just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing. I provide FX advisory to institutional clients. I'm also part of the team that's recognized by the Technical Analyst Awards as finalists for the best FX research. If you guys have any questions with regards to the recordings that are done on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, or even if you're with us live right now, and if you have any questions, right, do put them under the chat box. If not, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. So just a quick disclaimer before we get the session started proper. All the information presented here is not to be treated as investment advice, and they are for educational purposes only. So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today. We will first go through the key economic events. So for this, we will hop onto the economic calendar. We will run through any key events that we have to watch out for. So for this, I'm looking at mainly the G7 currencies, right? So that will be the dollar, yen, Aussie, Kiwi, CAD, Euro, as well as pound. So these are the key events that we will be keeping watch out for, right? And the idea is really just to see if there's any high impact news events. So for example, interest rates decisions or inflation or CPI data. In that case, we need to be slightly more careful with the currency pairs that we're trading, especially if we're entering on the smaller time frame, which will call for smaller stops. So this would be on the key economic events, and then following which we will be doing a review of the trade setups. Okay, so in this case, right, because last week we did not actually do a live analysis session, we did a podcast instead. So for this week, we won't be doing much of a review of the setups, but rather we'll just be going through the trade setups to watch out for the coming week. And then at the same time, right, throughout the session as well, if you guys have any questions, do put them under the chat. Okay, so let's take a look at the trade setups. Right, before we hop onto the trade setup, so as we've covered, sorry, it's not euro dollar, but rather it will be US 30. So in this case, right, let's hop onto the economic calendar first. Okay, so let me just bring out the economic calendar. So for economic calendar here, so for this, you can go to vantagemarkets.com. So either this or I use Forex Factory sometimes as well, right? So either or works. Go to economic calendar here under market analysis. And just scroll to the bottom of the page, you can see here, essentially these are the key events, right? So the impact of the events over here, and the color would highlight the different impacts. So the ones in red would be the ones with higher impact, the ones in amber would be the ones with lower impact. So in this example, you can see that generally what we have coming up next would be the CAD as well as dollar data. We have dollar retail sales coming up as well, right? So this would be the main one, and this would measure the strength of the domestic growth in the economy, right? So the recent CPI data that came out, you can see that CPI stands at 7.7%, so it showed that there are signs of easing. So in this case, right, there's also a higher chance that Fed would ease the pace of tightening cycles. And then apart from dollar data, we also have Bank of England, right, Governor Bailey's speech. So this will affect the pound. And then finally, also the EIA crude oil stocks change. So in this case, this would impact oil prices. So generally, a drop in oil stocks, right, or a drop in oil inventories would provide a boost for oil prices, right, especially when OPEC itself is also cutting production. So these are the key events that we have for today, right? And then for tomorrow, we have our ECB President Lagarde's speech as well. Okay, so you can take a look at all this impact, right? The high impact ones are the ones in red. So with that, right, you can see that today's key events would mainly involve the dollar as well as the CAD. So let's take a look at our chart right now, right? So we'll first start off with dollar index. So let me just bring out the chart. And then at the same time, if you guys have any questions, if there's anything that you want us to analyze, do put them under the chat box as well. Okay, so let's take a look at dollar index, right? So back where we left off on dollar index. So dollar index has been on a strong downward trend, right? Pretty bearish. And if you take a look at market structure, you can see it as well on the daily. You have lower lows and lower highs being formed. So let's remove all of these markings right now, right? So let's do a fresh analysis. Here, right? So as always, we want to start from the higher time frame first. So if you take a look at the monthly or even the weekly time frame, you can see on dollar index here. In terms of highlighting of key levels, you can see that there is this resistance area that we have here. So you see this region where essentially price came in to test this region as support. And you see that strong break below this region, and right now price is coming in and we saw that rejection of this resistance area. So this is one. The second one that we have would be the support region over here. You can see that this is a resistance and support level and highlighted over here. So again, right, in terms of how we define these zones, just take a look at how price interact with one another. So in this example, you can see that this case, we see that there are 3 rejections. One here, second one here, and the third one here, right? So this is one area that we want to keep a lookout for, and you can see that prices are approaching this zone. So this is on the monthly time frame. You can see that if you go down to the weekly time frame, this is essentially the last area that we have, right? So take a look at this area. You can see that there is this consolidation that we have over here before that strong push above this region. So in this example, you can see that this area itself on the weekly time frame, there is a weekly demand area or weekly demand zone over here that prices are currently sitting on, right? So I'll just put this in a different color. So let's just put it in gray. You can see over here, right? So this is your weekly demand zone. So same thing, right? Once we've identified these areas, we want to see if there are any Fibonacci retracement that lines up here. So there are a few ways we can do our Fibonacci retracement, right? One, it's starting from the zone below, which is essentially this area. So you can see that on the weekly time frame, this is that strong push up that we have before the pullback. So in terms of doing the Fibonacci retracement, what you can do is to take the low of this move and the high of this move. And essentially that's what we're doing, right? So Fibonacci retracement starting from the low to the highest point. And then likewise, right, these are the key levels. So you can see that in line with this, let me just change that, right? So in line with our gray zone, right, which is basically the weekly demand area, the weekly demand zone, there's the 38.2 Fibonacci retracement here. So what this suggests on the weekly time frame is that prices are sitting potentially on the support area. We could see more upside from there, right? Another thing that we can also check is if there are any trend lines the prices are currently sitting on. Not so much for the trend lines. You can see that there's still some more downside in this case. So let me just ignore this, right? So for trend lines, they tend to be subjective. You can see that the slope of the trend line starts slanting, or it starts getting steeper as well coming into this region. You can see that it started off like this. And if you have to follow through with it, you can see that right now, the slope of the trend line starts getting steeper. So in general, I would use horizontal zones more than the trend lines. And the idea is that trend lines can be more subjective. So much as it supports the analysis, right? In this case, if there's a specific area that prices are sitting on, right, this is an area I want to watch out for. So this is on the weekly time frame. Now onto our daily time frame, you can see this region. So essentially prices coming in to test this area. You have the 38.2% retracement sitting here. Right, so this is on the daily. Let's go down to the smaller time frame. So right now, what we want to do is to focus on this portion of the chart. So the idea is understanding market structure and also trying to combine them across different time frames. So if you take a look at this region itself, you can see that when price comes into these areas, right? When price comes in over here, you can see that this is a prior downtrend. What this also shows is that on the smaller time frame, you see lower lows and lower highs that are being formed coming into this area. So let's take a look at it on the 4 hours, or even smaller, right, on the 1 hour time frame. So what you notice over here coming into this zones is that you can see this strong push down, this strong drop, and essentially prices forming a lower lows and lower highs coming into this region. You can see that in terms of the area itself, we saw the previous break, the break of the previous low here. So price broke the previous low, and right now we are on this high. So this is the highest point. Okay, so essentially what this shows us is that when price comes down to this region, right now it's forming a new low currently over here, right? So what you want to see on the smaller time frame on the 1 hour, it's that this would be the extreme of this move, which is essentially this candle over here, right? So in the extreme of this candle, we can take this as the demand area. So this is the demand zone. So let me just highlight this in a different color. Okay, so you can see that this is the demand region. So what this tells me on the 1 hour is that if price comes into a demand area that we have over here, and if we're on the 30 minutes time frame, or even the smaller time frames, let's say the 15 minutes time frame, I want to ensure that when price comes into this region, right, coming in over here, we have basically a change in structure. So again, the same thing, right, based on the fractal nature of markets, what this suggests is that on the smaller time frame, right, if you see any reversal on the higher time frame, it has to first happen on the smaller time frame, and you can see it coming here. Right, coming into this region, you can see still lower lows and lower highs being formed. Again, if I have to trace out the structure, or even if you put it in line chart, you can highlight the lows and highs here. You can see the subsequent lower lows and lower highs being formed. So in order to see a reversal of this demand area, right? So if price were to respect the higher time frame and also to respect this demand area to see more upside, we need to see first a change in structure on the smaller time frame. So you can see as of now, right, prices are still testing this region, so there's no change in structure on the smaller time frame. So this is currently the area. The high that we need to wait for a break for would be this high over here, the last high. So essentially this is at around 106.30 level. So to wait for a break above this region, in this case, it will signal more upside, right? And the immediate target in this case, you can see that following the break of this region. So in this case, I will name this the upside confirmation. So this is the area. And once price breaks above this area, what this tells us is that in terms of structure, this is the last high that was being formed. And you can see that the high itself, this high, can be our target. The reason why it can be our target is because we see that change in structure on the smaller time frame on this pullback here, right? So what this shows us is that this high itself cannot form a new low, right? And we could see a possible change in structure on the higher time frame, which makes this high a target. Okay, so that is the thought process behind this. So this is my view on dollar index. Currently on the higher time frame, you can see that it is sitting on the weekly support area, which is basically this region that we have. It's also in line with the 38.2% retracement. If you go down to the 1 hour time frame, you can see that prices are currently testing this demand area. Whether this demand area will hold or not, we are not sure, right, in this case, because there's always a chance that price could come down lower. Because if you take a look at the recent structure here, you can see that it's still in a bearish market structure. So the only way we are able to see if there is a change in this structure is to go down to the smaller time frame. So you can go down to the smaller time frame. It can be the M30 or M15 minutes, and essentially look at the difference in the structure. You can see lower lows and lower highs being formed. These blue dots that we have over here, we marked out the last high as well, and this is our upside confirmation. Once price breaks above this, we know that we can target this high over here. Okay, so this is one. But if price continues to hold below this level, then what we have over here, it's a case where price could go deeper into this gray zone that we have, right? Deeper down into this to test the lows, which is also in line with the 38.2%. So this is on dollar index, right? Let's take a look at gold. So gold is sitting on an interesting level right now. So let's go on to the higher time frame first. And again, let's remove all the markings so that we're able to do a clearer, get a clearer picture. So if you take a look at gold on the monthly time frame, you can see that currently prices are testing this region. So again, in terms of support and resistance areas, you can see that this region itself, if you take a look at it in terms of line chart, you can see that this area itself, this was the last resistance area. If I draw a horizontal line across, you can see this is the last resistance area. Price is currently testing this region. What's more important over here is that if you take a look at the candles itself, you can see that this is currently the supply region, the supply zone that prices are sitting within. So this is on gold, right? This is on the monthly picture. If you take a look at it on the weekly picture, you can see that we're still seeing a strong bearish, bullish move up, a push towards this area. If you look at it in terms of structure on the weekly, you can see that this would be the lower lows and lower highs being formed and that pullback. So anywhere within this zone itself on the weekly time frame, it's still bearish market structure. You see this deep pullback into this area, right? So what we want to do with this, right, is to again identify our daily. So on our daily time frame, you can see that this region itself, right, what we can do with this, again, take a Fibonacci retracement of the move. This is the push down and then that pullback. So what we can do is to take the high from here as our starting point and take the low from here as our ending point. So let's do that, right? So Fibonacci retracement of the move from high to low. So same thing, right? Open up all the key levels. In this case, what's more relevant would probably be the 88.6. So you can see currently prices are testing right on this region itself. And if we take a look at it on the smaller time frame, right, using the same concept of supply demand areas, you can see that in this case itself, this is the daily supply region. So if you want to narrow down the zone, you can see that this is the daily supply region. Let me put it in a different color, right? And also in line with that, we have the 88.6 Fibonacci retracement as well. As to why this is a daily supply region, just look at the interactions between the candles. You can see how price respected this area first. We see that strong bullish candle up before the strong push down. So in this case, right, even if you take a look at it in line chart, you can see this as well very clearly. Right, some of you might call it order blocks, right? But the idea is basically that strong push up before this pullback, the sharp spike up, right? So this case, this would be the daily region. And then when you go down to the smaller time frame, let's go to the 4 hours time frame. Essentially, we can see this region, right? So prices are currently testing this area. You can see support and resistance areas on the smaller time frame as well. If we go down to the 4 hours time frame, you can see this area, right? So essentially, price coming in to test this region as a support over here, and then failed it after this. So this is a support and resistance area. So we have established that we're more bearish on the higher time frame. And likewise, right, once we found this, what you want to do is go down to the smaller time frame. So I'm currently on a 4 hours. So right now I want to go down to the 1 hour time frame. And again, look at the structure coming into this area. So again, if I were to just paint out the structure, you can see higher lows and higher highs coming into this region. So what we have over here in terms of structure, you can see that this is the last low that we have. Right, so if we want to see a bearish move, right, more downside, what we want to wait for is a break of this low over here, right? So this is the H1 low, so I'll just label this as the H1 low. Okay, and then coming into this region, right, let's go to the 30 minutes time frame. So you can see on the 30 minutes time frame as well, we have this range that prices are essentially trading within. We have a high that's here, right? So prices are hovering within this area, and you can see that coming into this area itself, right? This is also what we can call support or resistance areas. So in this case, we saw that rejection of this area once, second time, and then again over here coming into this region. So this would be a resistance area that we have, right? So same thing, you can use the Fibonacci retracements and extensions to check if there are any levels that line up with this high. So in terms of how we can do that, right? So Fibonacci extension itself, it's basically identifying zigzag patterns. So in this case, where would the zigzag pattern be? The zigzag pattern would be this pattern here. Okay, so having identified the pattern, what we want to do with this is to use the 3 points or turning points of the patterns essentially to project this level. So by taking this, right, Fibonacci extension of this move using point 1, excuse me, point 2, and point 3, the 3 points, we want to project and see basically how far would prices go. So when you do this, right, taking the extension of this move, point 1, point 2, and point 3, and open up the key extension level. So you can see this is the 100%, the 61.8, 78.6. So these are the common ones that I use. In this example, you can see that price lines up very nicely with the 100% extension. And this is the resistance area, right? So this is the resistance zone that we have on the smaller time frame. I'll put this in a different color. Let's say in red. Okay, so this is the resistance zone that we have on the smaller time frame over here, right? So once price on the smaller time frame, you can see that this is the 30 minutes. So again, we want to go down to the smaller time frame. You can go down to the 5 minutes, 15 minutes, right? Essentially try and see if there are any support or resistance areas. Are there any supply or demand areas in control? So once price comes into this region, this is on the 30 minutes, right? Let's go down to the smaller time frame. So you can use either the 10 minutes time frame or the 5 minutes time frame. And what we notice over here is that you can see that in terms of structure, right? Currently, this is the last demand area that we have on the 10 minutes. So you can see on the smaller picture, right? Prices are currently still holding above this region. You can see how price interact with this area as well. So we can see higher lows and then new lows being formed. And what you see coming into this area is that if price breaks below this low, we could see a further push down, at least to the next low that we have over here. And then eventually, of course, targeting this H1 low. Okay, so this is the idea, right? And what you want to do next, it's again, right, identify if there are any Fibonacci retracements that line up with this area. So I will label this as the downside confirmation. Essentially, we need to wait for a break below this region for more downside. Okay, so this is on the higher time frame, right? So once price breaks below this region, what it tells us is that the downside or the smaller time frames picture would be aligned with the higher time frame, which is more bearish. Okay, so this is the downside confirmation level. Same thing, right? If you take a retracement of this move, Fibonacci retracement, this would be the low and this would be the high. And we want to do the same thing, right? So basically using the retracement of this move from low to high. You can see the 38.2% retracement still sitting on this region. So what we want to do, it's again, wait for the break of this. Once price breaks below this region, I think we could see more downside, targeting the H1 low. The reason why we're targeting the H1 low is because if you take a look at the structure, you can see that this is the last low that we have over here, right? And then price pushed up, and right now it's trading within the range of the high and low. So the most immediate target in this case, instead of this low itself, would actually be the nearest low, essentially the low that pushed prices back into this supply area, this red zone that we have here. So this would be the low. Okay, right? You can put it in a line chart as well. It would then be this low. Okay, you can keep it in a close or even not in close if you want it in candles, right? That's fine. But that's the idea, right? So essentially on the break of this, we could see more downside, and this would be the next area. So what we're waiting for right now on gold, it's a break of this region, right? And then let's see what we have here. Okay, so this is the view on gold, right? So essentially is in line with the dollar index. You can see that dollar index is testing a support region, right? So dollar index itself on the weekly time frame is sitting on a support area over here, right? Which is this gray zone that we have, this area here. And if you take a look at gold on the higher time frame as well, you can see that it is currently sitting on a resistance zone. So as to whether we will see a reversal, right, we need to wait for the smaller time frames confirmation. You can see this region, right? So this is the higher time frame, and then within the daily region itself here. So even if I were to remove the monthly, you can see that on the daily, this is the area. So once price breaks below this region, you can see on the smaller picture, this would be the downside confirmation with shorts here. And the next area that we have on the bigger picture, you can take a look at it on the 4 hours itself. It's basically this level over here. You can see that there's this huge level, and if you extend it across, let me just take a look at it on the daily. You can see that essentially this region itself, this support area, you can see how price came in to test it as a resistance 3 times before it broke above. So once price breaks below this H1 low, this would be the next area for me to watch out for. Okay, so this is my view on gold, but of course this support region is still very far away, right? So in this example itself, I'll just take a look at the smaller time frame. So if you're playing any shorter term moves, right, this would be the level to wait for a break below. So it'll be at around 1779.80. Okay, for round number 6. So this is on go, right? And then we have another one, but okay, we have a request. Okay, Trong, okay, we want to look at pound dollar near term retracement. So let's take a look at pound dollar. So same thing first, right? We want to start from the higher time. Okay, so let me just remove all these drawings, right? So if you take a look at it on the monthly time frame, you can see that on the monthly, prices are still in a bearish market structure with the last break in structure here. You can see the break in the low, and then also the support and resistance area on the monthly. So this is on the monthly picture, right? In terms of whether there are any key zones on the monthly, right? There isn't any, but you can see that just in terms of graphical level, this would be the area to watch out for on the bigger picture. And then a pullback into this resistance. So if we are to trace out this move, it's essentially how price came to test it as a support, break below it, and then right now it's testing this region as a resistance, which is essentially what we're seeing here. Okay, so now that we have found that, right, we want to do a Fibonacci retracement of the move. You can see that this is the high and this is the low. What we're trying to do is to see if there are any Fibonacci retracement levels that line up here. So by taking the high and low, so Fibonacci retracement of the move from the highest point to the lowest point, right? Open up the key levels, you can see that the 50% retracement. So 50% retracement is slightly higher. The 38.2% retracement, it's broken. You can see over here, right? We wouldn't know till the end of the month close, but you can see at least on a weekly time frame, right? This region is not respected anymore. If we go back to the monthly time frame, right? So this is the zone that we want to watch out for. Let me just remove the magnet mode, right? So this is the resistance area, the most immediate resistance level that we have here. Okay, so this is on the monthly picture. If you go on to the weekly picture, you can see that on this area itself, prices are currently testing this region. So it's pretty much the same setup, right? So price came in, tapped into this area. If you want to narrow it down onto the daily time frame, you can see that this region itself, if I have to narrow down this area, right, it will be this area here. So I'll put it in a different color. Let's say in red. Okay, so price came in, tapped into this area. This is on the daily picture. And then on the daily picture as well, you want to see where's the next support area. So you can see that in terms of the support area, this would be the area here. Again, how so, right? So this, instead of a specific level, it's really more of a region. It's a region here. And again, why? Because we saw how price interacted with this area, tested as a resistance and then broke above it. So right now, this is a resistance turn support level. So this is on the daily picture. And then we want to go down to the 4 hours time frame and essentially look at the same thing. So if you take a look at it on the 4 hours time frame or even a 1 hour, you can see clearer moves coming up, right? So essentially, you see again in terms of structure, higher lows and higher highs. And right now we are in the midst of forming this pullback leg, right? So this is the area. You can see that this support level on the smaller time frame is still being respected here, right? Same thing, resistance turn support level. Price testing as a resistance, broke above it, tested as a support, and right now is pushing higher. So this is the area, right? The most immediate or the smaller time frame. In this case, this is the 1 hour support. So you want to put this, probably put this here as H1, right? So this is the 1 hour support area. So you can see that currently prices are within this leg. It's forming this pullback, the new leg, essentially the last low that we have over here. So it's the same thing, right? When price comes deeper into this area, we want to ask ourselves the same question, right? You can see coming in this pullback leg itself. If you go to the 15 minutes, you can see this clearer, right? In order for the reversal to happen first, we need the reversal on the smaller time frame to happen first. So in this example, you can see that you still have, again, higher lows and higher highs that are being formed. You can see the break of this subsequent highs over here. So what is the last low? You can see that in terms of structure, this is the last low that we have. So either we wait for a break of this low for more downside, that's one, right? Or if you want to wait for it on the 1 hour picture, then I would say that we will wait for a break of this area here. So this is essentially the downside confirmation level. Okay, so this is the support level that we need to wait for price to break below. So again, for round number 6, right? Round number 6, right? It'll be 1.1820. And then let's check this area. So the support region that we found, right? Let's see if there are any retracements or extensions that line up here. So for that, right, retracement, you can do this level. So this is the push up and then that pullback. So we want to identify the low as the support and the high as a resistance. So Fibonacci retracement of the move from low to high, same thing, right? Check all the key levels. You can see in this example, right, the 61.8 retracement is the one, right? In this example, the 61.8 would not be relevant because it's broken. How so? You can see that this is our ending point. And to the right of the ending point, which means that basically to the right of this point onwards, price should not be breaking past this level. So in this example, the 61.8 is not valid, it's broken. So the next one that we have would be the 78.6. So let me just change this. Right, so 61.8 is not broken. The next one, 78.6, which is this area here. You can see that price tested this support and then it just continued much higher. On the smaller time frame, you have this bullish market structure form and then a potential resistance turn support area as well. Even though I would not consider this because on the smaller time frame, it's slightly more choppy, right? So we could see a deeper pullback within this whole leg itself. Okay, so this is on the 1 hour. So back to the 1 hour time frame, you can see that this is essentially the level. So once price breaks below this level, I think we could see a further push down, and this will be the next area that we have, which is this region here. Okay, so we need to wait for price to break below this level first as our downside confirmation. For a further push, for a further drop. Okay, you can see that currently it's sitting on resistance, but as to how far or how deep that pullback is, price could continue higher as well, right? Which is why we need to wait for the reversal on the smaller time frame here. Okay, so this is my view on pound dollar on the shorter time frame. Currently it's sitting on the support level. On the higher time frame, it's sitting on a resistance area that you have over here. As you can see, the one marked out in red. We saw the reversal happen once already here. Right, it's also in line with the Fibonacci retracement. But what's more important is that on this pullback, right, when price comes into this area, we go down to the smaller time frame and try and see if there's any reversal. Currently, you can see that prices are still forming higher lows and higher highs. Right, if you mark out the structure, you can see that it's still higher lows and higher highs. If you put it in line chart as well, you can see that in terms of the highs, right, it's forming newer higher highs and higher lows. So until there's a change in structure for this, on the 15 minutes time frame, at least it's still bullish. Okay, so I hope this is helpful, Chong. Right, so these are the retracement, these are the key levels to watch for me on pound dollar in the near term. Okay, and then the last one that I want to show you would be on US 30, right? So this is what we have on the higher time frame first. So again, if you take a look at a weekly time frame, in this case, right, you can see very clear bearish market structure here. How so? Right, lower lows and lower highs being formed. You can see here, look at it in line chart, you can see the same thing as well, right? So you have your lows. And then currently prices are testing this area. If you take a look at it in terms of support resistance area, right, this is also this resistance area that we have over here. So prices are currently testing this weekly zone. If you go down to the daily time frame, there isn't anything much on the daily time frame, but if you notice the most recent structure that we have over here, right, again, you can see higher lows and higher highs coming into this area. If you take a look at it on the 4 hours, you can see that prices tested this region. We saw this triple top, right, essentially 3 equal resistance levels that price reject off here. And if you go down to the 1 hour time frame, you can see this even clearer. So on the 1 hour time frame or even the 30 minutes time frame, you can see that currently, in terms of the low, you can see that price broke the last low, right? So if you look at it in terms of structure, you see higher lows and higher highs being formed. And then this is the last low over here. Price did not break above the high, and you can see a subsequent break above that low. That's the change in structure that we have, right? So essentially, price took out the low, and you can see that this is the last click that we have on the pullback. So what we can do with this, right, having identified this, again, is to find our resistance area. So in terms of resistance area, right, this is the last click we want to focus on. So what we can do with this resistance area, you can see that this would be the most immediate resistance area. you go on to the smaller time frame, you can see basically this region over here. Let me put it in a different color. Let's say in purple, right? So the idea is that you can see essentially price came to this area that tested as both a resistance and support. You can see this resistance area, and then price broke below this region, and right now this is a support and resistance area here. So this is the region that we found, right? So this is the first area, and then we are not expecting price to break above this. So when price breaks above the high over here, right, this means that we're wrong. We want to look to get out of the trade. So this is the area, right? And once you've identified this, what you can do with this is again Fibonacci retracement of the move from high to low. Right, so open up the key levels. So usually the 61.8 or 78.6 are the key ones that I watch out for. You can see in this example, right, the 61.8 retracement is lining up very nicely with the purple zone. Another thing we can check is our zigzag pattern. So this is a Fibonacci extension. So this is the zigzag pattern. And these are the 3 points that we can use to project the extension level. So once we do this, you can see that this will be 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Right, so same thing, right, open up the key level. So we have the 78.6, I'll put this in a different color. Right, so this is the region. You can see that essentially this is an area. Let me just put it in a lighter color so we can see this levels, right? So this is the region where we want to watch. Are we taking immediate shots from here? No, right? So as long as when price comes into this area, it's the same thing, right? Coming into this region, if you go down to the 15 minutes time frame or even the 5 minutes, you can see higher lows and higher highs coming in. So what you want to do is to wait for a change in structure first before playing this drop. Okay, so this is the first area to watch, right? And the second area is basically where we want to get out of the position. If we're wrong, this would be the next area, right? So essentially just slightly higher than the high that we have here. In terms of support area itself, you can see that once price reverse below this level, the most immediate level, if you go on to the 4 hours, this is clearer, right? You can see if I were to just draw a horizontal line across, you can see how price respected this area again twice, right? So you can draw a horizontal line across, and this is essentially this zone over here where price respected as resistance. Let me just remove the magnet mode because I'm not able to draw this. Okay, so this level here. So essentially price coming in to test it as a resistance twice and then testing as a support. So this is the area. So once we see a smaller time frames confirmation that is on this level itself, we could play a bigger drop, right? One would be, of course, targeting this low because this is a low where we saw the rejection of twice. So we cannot ignore the support level, right? But understanding that once price breaks, we see that change in structure or change in flow or the flow that we have over here, right? Essentially, we will be targeting this as the most immediate low and this as the second low. Okay, so this is on US 30, right? So these are the key levels that I'm waiting for. And once price enters into this region, I'll see if there are any changes on the smaller time frame. Okay. So this is on US 30. Again, we're not taking immediate entries. We want to wait for a change in structure first on the smaller time frame. This is especially important if we have US data coming up, right? We could see a sharp spike right through it. So which is why we always wait for price to enter this zone first. On the smaller picture, once price entered into this area, you can go down to the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes to see if there's any reversal on the smaller picture. Okay, so I hope this helps, right? And I believe those are all the questions that we have for today. So for today, we covered mainly on dollar index, gold, US 30, right? And we have requests for pound dollar as well. So we took a look at that. Okay, so I think those are all the questions that we have for today. On Thursday, right, we will be reviewing the setups. So do join us for Thursday's live, Friday's live analysis session as well. Right, for Thursday, we are covering on educational topics. So this, I believe, would be an introduction to a beginner's trading series. So you can check out the topics on vantagemarkets.com, right, as well as the schedule that we have. We do have webinars on a daily basis. So do join us for them, right, and do come with your questions as well. Okay, so with that, we have no other questions. We have come to the end of the session, right? Thanks everyone for staying with us throughout the session. Have a great day, trade safe, stay safe, and we will catch you guys again soon.